Was the pregnancy expected?
My baby came from the freezer, and he said to me in the first 15 minutes, has anyone ever suggested that you might benefit from an ADHD assessment? And I just warn you now, I may get emotional.
Melissa Hemsley,
Sunday Times bestseller,
mental health activist, known for her amazing recipes.
Wow, I just love my baby so much. But my relationship with my partner, that has been hard.
We need help. We don't do it alone.
No.
We do not do it all.
I want to be well and not, hashtag wellness well. I want to be strong.
Did you give yourself a maternity leave?
I worked because I financially was thinking, what's next? What happens if I don't? We spent tens of thousands of pounds on IVF.
Talk to me about support. What role does that play in your life? Where does that motivation come from? I want to understand and go into detail of how you've done it all and what has been the secret to juggling two major things in your life.
This is the conversation to have.
Today on CEO Mum, I am joined by the incredible Melissa Hemsley, a self-taught chef, best-selling author, and sustainability champion who's passionate about creating feel-good food that nourishes both people and the planet. We dive into Melissa's journey of writing her next cookbook whilst balancing the chaos of motherhood, carving out time for herself, and navigating this new life of motherhood whilst also being recently diagnosed with ADHD. It's an inspiring, honest conversation about juggling creativity, parenting, and self-care, whilst also being true to your passions. Trust me, you're not going to want to miss this one. Introducing Melissa Hemsley. I'm Jada Sezer, and this is CEO Mum. Welcome back. Melissa, thank you so much for joining me on CEO Mum. I'm so glad to have you here. It's been crazy. And we were just saying that our babies are nearly a year old. Like they're only a week apart or so.
It's crazy.
Was the pregnancy expected?
She was, and I find this wild, because you know what? Do you know I love the freezer? I love freezing food. And I laugh and think, my baby came from the freezer. I have embryos in the freezer now. So they are all from the same batch. And we got so lucky. The frozen embryo transfer, FET, worked the first time.
Amazing.
So we did the egg collection at the same time. We froze these embryos. They get to day 5. And then actually I brought a book out. That was about 2 years ago. And then we did what's called the frozen embryo transfer. And that was, September, not last year, the year before. And then she came. So, I remember one friend saying to me throughout my pregnancies, because I had some miscarriages, was cautiously optimistic. She used to be like, oh, maybe you want to be cautiously optimistic, or I found it easy to be cautiously optimistic. And I think whether we're talking pregnancy or not, I often would think worst case scenario about any scenario. And then I would think, okay, I'm going to be cautiously optimistic. That was a big thing for me to go from being so cynical about any scenario, baby or not, work, friendship, relationships. And then I went to cautiously optimistic. And now with my hypnosis visualization lady, she's really helped me think, like thinking it to believe it, seeing it to believe it, acting like it's happening. So I'm closing my eyes already. She's totally got me there. She would say to me, like, what scene would make you happy family wise? And I would say, round a kitchen, making bolognese with dogs running around me and babies running around me and my partner. And it would be messy and chaotic and loud. And the first time I gave my baby bolognese, I was like, oh, it's happening. And it's beautiful.
That gives me shivers.
Yeah.
So, know that that's something that just brings you the most joy, that you've been able to sort of resonate that frequency and it's come to you.
Yeah. After my last miscarriage, pre-starting IVF, I went to go and see a psychologist for trauma release. So I went to go and see a guy, and he said to me in the first 15 minutes, has anyone ever suggested that you might benefit from an ADHD assessment? And I laughed. I literally burst out laughing. And then I was like, oh, why am I laughing? Because around that time, I had seen lots of things about ADHD on Instagram, and women our age and older having not that we're late in life, but later in life diagnoses. Anyway, so I laughed because I was almost was like a shock, but kind of not. The psychologist referred me to a psychiatrist, and I want to just say here, I was in a position where I decided to financially pay for it because had I gone through the GP, I'd have been waiting perhaps for 2 years. And because I knew that IVF was on the cards, it was something I was feeling anxious about. And I thought, I want to know. So I went through this process, which isn't immediate. And that's the thing, that's why it is costly and why it's taking the NHS longer, because it's multiple different ways to do it. Because it's a very important assessment to have, and it's not just like a quick thing. So she confirmed I have ADHD. We talked about medication, but the medication isn't, or she didn't recommend it for me as someone going through fertility treatment. And so what was amazing about learning this is, because I wasn't going on medication, she said, well, of course we can do different things. We can tailor therapy to you. We can put practical tools in place. And what about the most important thing, which is, how do you feel about having this diagnosis? How does it make you feel? Obviously, people with ADHD aren't all the same. So there were some things that weren't relevant to me, or not that I remembered, but there were some things that were so on the nail. And one of them was that I get super stimulated by fragrance, noise, lights. When I went to UCH where I gave birth, when I had my first midwife appointment, they were like, tell us some things we should know. And I said, well, I've got diagnosed anxiety and I've got diagnosed ADHD. And I kind of was like, I wonder what they'll do with that information, if anything. And the first thing the midwife said to me was, is the lighting okay in here for you? How amazing. And it was bright light, NHS hospital, full on noisy beeping. And I was like, oh, well, if you don't mind turning the light off, that'd be amazing. And she did. And I was like, that's incredible. So there's just things about being diagnosed that have so helped me. I know things to watch out for. I know that if I've been somewhere super loud or done something, I mean, I think a lot of people, whether they've been diagnosed or not, might benefit from this. You know, I know if I've had a really intense situation, I need quiet, like afterwards. I know, again, some tools I've got, and I did it on the way here. I listened to this, these beats called solfeggio frequency. Have you heard of them?
I have heard of them. I haven't done enough practice to know how they might affect me, but...
Well, I kind of don't know either, other than I know that they feel good. So there's one called anxiety relief or love relief. We listen to it every night going to sleep with the baby.
Do you?
So on the way here, I could feel myself being really stimulated and getting a bit nervous, and I was like trying to squeeze in a bunch of emails, and then I just put on the anxiety relief and a bit, and just hearing the first like 3 bars of music, I just found myself gently resetting.
Do you find that you've like lent more into those practices since you became a mum to like help with your self-care? Because, you know,
big time.
When you become a parent, you don't really have much time for self-care. The majority of us don't have that time. Why do you think that you've done a little bit more of that?
I want to be well, and not, you know, hashtag wellness well. I want to be strong. And actually, I haven't said the word strong yet, but I remember thinking that so much through the IVF and the pregnancy. And now I want to be strong. I want to be resilient. I mean, that word always reminds me of COVID now, but you know, it is a great word.
Congrats on writing a book whilst also raising a newborn baby and having the first year of life, also birthing another baby, another cookbook. I want to understand and go into detail of how you've done it all and what has been the secret to juggling 2 major things in your life. Did you give yourself a maternity leave? And at what point did you step away at all? You're already shaking your head. No maternity leave. Was you writing your book whilst you were, you know, in the labour ward?
I wasn't writing my book. I really thought I would give myself maternity leave because for many reasons, including the fact that this was such a longed for pregnancy. I had had a year of IVF before, so I was knackered before I even got pregnant. And as we know, pregnancy for most of us is incredibly physically challenging and emotionally challenging and all of that. And then I had an unplanned C-section. And I mean, I guess they call it an emergency, but it wasn't a red lights emergency, but it was pretty traumatic in its way. And also everybody I knew, because I'd banged on about it, knew I'd had a baby. So no, it's not like anyone was even in touch with me. But I worked. I worked because I financially was thinking, what's next? What happens if I don't? I don't know. I don't want to judge myself and say it was silly, but I kind of did this thing where I went, I'm going to work really, really hard during my pregnancy so that I can have a maternity leave. And I just knackered myself out. I didn't respect my body and what was happening. I didn't listen to myself. So then having done all of this to give myself a maternity leave, I then didn't anyway. So if I'm blessed moving forward, I will be rethinking that strategy.
Because you don't expect that what your pregnancy will be like, especially with your first. You're like, well, there's women out there in their high heels looking stunning with these big bumps, taking all these gorgeous pictures on Instagram. That'll be my life. Yeah, right. I was walking around with just a robe on most of it because nothing else fit.
I had read an incredible book. It's called The Fourth Trimester. Had you heard about this? Had you read it?
Yeah.
And I really recommend it. She's from a Chinese background and she explores lots of different cultures and how, you know, confinement, like what happens towards the end of pregnancy and then afterwards, and how often the women folk gather around to take care of mum and they help with the baby, but it's primarily for mum because mum's looking after baby, let's say, and the women folk in this book are looking after mum. And I'd read, like, you know, don't see anyone for 40 days. Oh no, not don't, but like if you don't want to, don't see anyone. Stay near the bed, stay in bed.
Oh yeah, I love it. It was like 10 days in bed, 10 days around the bed, 10 days in the house. I was like, I am not leaving for a whole month. Everyone else can do everything that I need done.
And what happened? Did it happen?
I wouldn't say 10 days, but I definitely was trying to milk it for as long as possible.
Yeah, and so we should.
Yeah.
And so we should. Did you find it hard? Did you get itchy feet?
Yeah,
Did you want to be...
I wanted to, as soon as they were here, I was like, I want to show them to the world.
Yeah.
Even though I could barely walk and really, that was not going to happen. We did spend the first week with them because I had a thing where we really, I don't know why we did this, but the umbilical cord, we wanted it to drop off before we took them outside. I think it was just this superstition of just making sure that they're a little bit healthier. You know, just having like a week at home before they're exposed to the environment and all the germs and bugs. And I was very much about pacing guests. So it was like, you know, mums and stuff came. But after that, I was like, actually, I don't want to see anyone else. Like, I feel like I look like a wreck. How are you with that?
I had planned to do the kind of the 10-10-10, and I really am not good with my boundaries. So I had told everybody, you're not seeing the baby. Like, and please help me remember that. So that was quite good because I thought, you know, I wanted to feed people. If someone comes to my house, I want to feed them. I want to look after them. I want to ask them lots of questions. So there was that. But it was beautiful. And I was living at the time near Hampstead Heath when she was born. And I just wanted to be out on the heath. And in many ways, I needed that heath. And also I had walked the heath every day during my pregnancy and really holding my belly, even when it was tiny, and like visualizing. I work with a visualization hypnotist, which I'll probably speak about because she's really helped me do so much believing. And I walked the heath, and you know what's funny is my friend's got a puppy, and the puppy, they don't put puppies down on the grass for the first 10 weeks until they've had their jabs. So it totally makes sense. Of course we want to protect our little ones.
I know, I was like, you're not coming in unless you wash your hand. I'm gonna like disinfect you.
And what about kissing?
No.
This is it.
It's so hard though because they are just so special and cute and little.
And they smell so good.
How do you structure your days? What type of support and help do you have that kind of shows up? Because we have, and I've spoken about this before, and you know, it seems to be a thing that a lot of the women on this podcast, because it is CEO Mum and it's about working mothers, we need help. We don't do it alone. No. We do not do it all. And I have a nanny a few days a week. We have a grandma that comes in. Tyson has a day with them. I have a Fridays with them. And it's that flexible village that makes it really work for me. Does Summer spend a lot of time with other people? Like, is she quite easy to like leave?
She wasn't happy about me leaving today, and I said to myself, I know she's fine. She's healthy, she's safe, she's fine. She just wants me around a little bit more. She's actually better if she can't see me. You know, it's quite, actually, I found it hard because I would hear her like, and I'd want to go to her, but I also know that's her only way of communicating. So she's just like making a little sound because she's sort of winding down, and you know, I would find that electrifying through my nipples. My like gut would go when I'd hear these sounds. I think a lot of mums feel it. I think some dads feel it.
Talk to me about support. What role does that play in your life?
Honestly, so much. I could cry now just thinking how grateful I am for all the people that support me, but not also underestimating. Shout out to myself for the logistics of making it happen. It's like a full-time job. Producer. Like all the moving parts. Like, I don't want this to come out wrong because I'm really conscious. I've listened to a million podcasts while I wanted to be pregnant and while I so desperately wanted to be a mum. And I don't want this to come out the wrong way, but one of the things that have come from me going through my fertility struggles, getting pregnant, and now being a mum is I definitely advocate for myself more. And I sometimes do it by thinking of my baby at home. So I'm like, you know what? I will go to this, but I will only go for an hour. And I won't worry that people will think I'm being rude, because I'll let them know I'll ask them and let's set it out at the beginning. I'd love to come to your event, or I'd love, I'm talking work, friendships. I really want to come. I really want to be there to support you. I really want to connect with you, but I'm going to have to arrive early and leave early in order to make it happen. Is that okay with you?
And most people understand that. Oh my God, it's the best reason. Sorry, I've got to get back for bath time. I've got to leave at 5. I've got to be in bed by 10, latest.
Really. Oh my God, 9, please.
Yeah, 9.
I've said to quite a lot of my friends, I'm so sorry. I had no idea it was this hard. I thought I could maybe imagine.
Yeah.
Because I'm the last of all my friends. Most of my friends have got 16-year-olds, 12-year-olds. Yeah, and they're amazing because they're out of the baby zone. They love
coming.
Yes. Let me hold your baby.
You shower.
Exactly.
Amazing.
So thank God for friends.
I mean, a part of the village and the external village, that's definitely what they are a part of. Have you ever felt, and I'm sure you have, a level of exhaustion? Has that level of exhaustion ever lent towards burnout at all?
I think looking back, I might have had some sort of nervous breakdown around 16 when I changed schools, and it was really hard changing schools at 16. So between GCSE and A-level, and I went from being quite academic, wanting to be a doctor, all A stars in my GCSEs. I mean, looking back now, what does that mean? I now realise with my ADHD, I was actually really good at memorising and preparing for exams. Not, that's a whole nother conversation. There's a whole thing there that I've been exploring. Not just because it actually has been helpful for me to see how I work and people please and all of that. Anyway, so I think I had my first one then. And then I think it kept repeating at certain periods of my life. And this was the big thing that I really discussed with my partner was, do I do this bit? Because what if I risk having a breakdown or a burnout? And I was very conscious about postpartum depression. I spoke to my psychiatrist and we had a really great chat over, it was a real worry for me over a period of sessions. And I spoke to lots of other people, friends, and she was like, you know what, you can get postpartum depression whether you have had any mental health challenges before. I mean, most of us have had mental health challenges of some degree, but she was like, let's not go into it fearing it. Again, that mindset. She was like, I will support you. And I do feel so fortunate to have had a professional watching out for me. But also my partner, my God, I actually, when a few people have said to me, what's it like being a mum? I'm like, wow, I just love my baby so much. But my relationship with my partner, that has been hard. Really hard.
That seems to
I don't know, has that been coming up?
I mean, because you're prioritising keeping a little human alive, right? And the survival is down to you and your support network, right? And then you're working, and then you're trying to keep yourself alive. So having a relationship really tends to go onto the back burner.
And your patience, you've only got so much patience in the bucket.
Oh, of course, because you're, 24/7, that's motherhood, parenthood. Yeah. What have you done to...
Well, so we tried to make this big decisions that affect the family, like, do I do this book or not, together? Because it was very much it was almost like a heads up, I'm probably going to be...
Did he expect that you might be going back to work? Was that something you had discussed previously?
Financially, we felt like we're both self-employed. We felt like we needed to.
Okay, so he understood the importance of continuing working.
Yeah.
Did you guys discuss maybe whilst you were pregnant or even go through IVF that the roles that you each would have taken on? Like, I'm about to when I have the baby, I'm going to have to maybe take a step back. Was you aware that that might have been the case for you a little bit?
We spent tens of thousands of pounds on IVF. We had to borrow, so there was that as well. So my heart really goes out to people who have financially gone through it, because lots of people, there's lots of rules with IVF. If your partner has another child already, it could be over an age, but we were going, wow, we've spent this much money. We want to try again at some point, hopefully. So we felt I had to go back to work. Same with Henry. For the last 5 years, really, we had been wanting to have a baby. We hadn't thought about what happens
baby comes.
next. It's amazing how a lot of people get married or they have kids and they forget to ask each other what the other person wants out of the marriage or the future, or what kind of parent they want to be, what kind of values, religion, morals.
Because figuring out on the job is challenging. It's quite good to be aligned from the start, right? I mean, hindsight's a great thing. When summer did arrive, did you then have to have the conversation? Was it something that you sort of, right, guys, let's get a cup of tea and figure this out? Or was it like as of when?
I think we hadn't gone on, like done an online with our couples therapist who's moved out of London for a while. And I think it must have been about 30 weeks. So like really getting on. And we like logged on, and within about 5 minutes, I burst into tears. And I was like, I don't know where this has come from. And Henry's like, what's going on? And my therapist was like, so shall we just start with you, Melissa? What's going on for you? And I was like, I don't know. And I think I hadn't voiced that worry. Because I had suddenly realized, oh my gosh, it's real. She's coming. This is what my life's going to be like. My boyfriend often laughs / gets frustrated with how much I plan ahead. So he wasn't the one going to plan ahead to what life was going to be like. And I had not planned ahead. And then I think I felt really out of control, like what is going to happen. So it was great because in that first session, our therapist went, okay, so like, let's just do some basics. Let's talk baby steps, literally. What's that first week going to look like? What's the second week going to look like? And as I said, as is my theme and joy of people coming to my life at the right time, someone I knew was moving out of London and said, I've got this amazing woman. But again, like, wow, what a new relationship to have in your life.
Regarding your nanny.
Childcare, yeah. Most important person in your home, bringing up your child, being around your child. They're seeing you naked, or mine did, although she was like, I don't really usually see people this naked, So there was that. We're really struggling figuring it out. Our couples therapist is always like, guys, get a shared calendar. It's like number one thing. And we can't figure out how to do it. Yeah. Have you got a shared calendar?
So I don't have a shared calendar, but I do send invites to anything that I need Tyson to be across of. So I'm always constantly like, did you get the invite? Did you get the invite?
And
you have to send me your work. Invites too of anything that you are going to be out of the house. He does, but this is, I think, again, one of the benefits, and I speak to a lot of women on the podcast that talk about having flexible working partners.
Yeah.
And that is such a privilege to have somebody that will be around on a day that you wouldn't, especially with twins. Like, I'm outnumbered from the start. So I need to know if you're not going to be in the house, because I need to call someone else. Don't get me wrong, there's so many twin parents out there that do it alone, and hats off to the single twin parents especially. But I'm always like, send me your calendar invite. It's a part, but it was a new thing that we had to adapt to, because I'm all about systems and structure, and I find like having a good system in place allows me to have a bit more free thinking and building like with work and stuff. Did you have to have that discussion about like domestic labor and chores and household stuff
and the mental load
and the mental load, the purchasing fatigue, all of that comes with being a new parent?
It's funny, isn't it? Because I can tell my side of the story now, and I can immediately think of how he would say it. And I think maybe that's a bit helpful to talk about, because Henry is very laid back. Now, he works, as you said as well, about we're lucky in privileged in the fact that we have we're all flexible in our household and in your household, which has its perks and some disadvantages too.
For sure.
But one of the things is that I know I work best in the morning, and Henry can work pretty much any time. He quite likes a slow morning, and I quite like a fast morning. So that felt like quite a good thing. I could get some work done in the morning. He could work later. I sort of get to a point where I'm like, I can't work anymore. I like fall apart mid-afternoon, evening. So I'm like a chunky, let's get it done. He very much can tap in and out of work. So that really works well. We do the calendar invites. We haven't worked out how to do the shared calendar. Apparently it's really easy. We can't work it out. Too tired to research it. But again, it relies on him, as you say, responding back with his plans. And our therapist, a couple of tips from my therapist today. One thing that's non-negotiable is he and his partner will have one-on-one time every day where they don't talk kids, they don't talk logistics. They have like their logistic chat, and he has 2 kids. They have 2 kids. And so I was like, how are we going to find time to do that? And he's like, just try and do it every now and then, or do 10 minutes, but We don't really do date nights. We love going out for dinner with our baby, but we definitely need to work on our relationship moving forward. But I also think it's okay. We're only a year in.
To be still figuring it out.
To be still figuring it out.
What I've seen the common thread to be at the moment is that you're constantly figuring out. And even in my own experience as somebody that feels very organised and loves a system and a little bit rigid to some degree, which I think has also really helped having 2 babies because, again, you're outnumbered and you've only got one pair of hands. So you can't really be that flexible. Well, I haven't been able to be that flexible on my own. You've got to remember that you really love that person and to have a baby with them, to be in a relationship with them. And don't lose that friendship element because it can become very practical and you coexist with each other because you're so exhausted that to pour into another relationship, you're like, I just don't have the energy for it. A question I want to ask is, how do you stay motivated to... I know you said the book was something that was like grasping the opportunity to some degree, but there has to be an element of motivation that goes beyond money. And obviously your lovely audience wanting that from you. Where does that motivation come from?
I mean, I had my first job when I was like 12. It wasn't so much the amount of pocket money, I mean real money, I was receiving. It was the feeling of being independent and not having to depend. So I think there has been that feeling of having like a safety net since really young. But as you say, it's not just financial. The motivation comes from... there's always time to help somebody else. And when you have enough, you share it. So that motivates me. Like that does feel built in to me. And unfortunately, there's so many different ways that people could do with our help. Like you don't have to look far to see where you could help. And then there's the motivation to work because I've worked so hard to get to this point. And there's an element of... I'm motivated to get to a point in my work where I really enjoy it now and I'm not just chasing my tail. So I'm kind of getting to a point now where I'm feeling more confident in myself and I want to enjoy working in this phase of my life where I count my blessings constantly. I have what I want. Touch wood. My healthy baby, me, my family are healthy, we're all okay. And then I want to enjoy it now. That's quite a tough, pipe dream, or is it to be able to enjoy it?
So one of the things actually I've never mentioned online, and one of the things that we have in common is that we both lost our dads to cancer, and that is something that I think led me to become very focused. Actually, I think a lot of my grief was channeled into that. Because of that, I saw how much work I put in, I get an outcome. And I think for a long time, many years, I just worked. And so because I know that that's something that I do that leads to positivity and getting what I want, I think that's just something that I do more and more of. But I've learned that it is a skill, but you can have an overdone skill to a point where it actually starts becoming a decline of your success. And sitting back is what I do more of now.
Jada, same with multitasking, right? I used to be a proud multitasker, and then I think I overdid it to my detriment. I don't think it was helpful to be multitasking. I don't think I was actually doing any of the tasks well. I might have been getting them done, but not well. And again, at what cost? By the time I got to bed, I was just buzzed out, burnt out. Did you ever hear the quote, "The harder I work, the luckier I get"? I don't know if I took that the wrong way, Okay. I think I heard that a bit of a young age.
Yeah.
The harder I work, the luckier I get. Yeah. Because where do you stop?
Yeah, I do think, if you work hard, then you deserve what you have. So it's almost like you have to be sweating on the ground until to own the success you have. Now I think about working smart, not working hard. Yeah. And using going back into the next phase of my career after leaving modelling and doing that for a decade, I used to think I'm starting from the very, very beginning and this is really going to be difficult for me. But actually you're going to be bringing a whole ton of experience, knowledge, contacts, insight that somebody maybe 10 years ago would never have. Do you find that you have experienced any part of that, especially and more specifically with doing your job, but now as a mother, and the benefits and reframing that would have had on your approach to work?
Yes, I'm trying to think of what I do differently. I think I'm definitely honouring my boundaries, because it can be quite easy to set boundaries, but it's whether you're honouring them or not. And do you know Donna Lancaster?
No.
She is amazing. I went on one of her retreats, and then, which was a full on, like, it wasn't like a kind of like, oh, lovely, relaxing retreat. It was full on deep work, family constellation work. If anyone knows about that, it was heavy, heavy work. And then individually, I started seeing her as a therapist, and she would just say to me, like, imagine your boundary, it's the gate, and you decide who comes in or out, and you can set them all you like, but you've got to honour those boundaries. So I think that when I ask something or maybe let people know something that's good for me, I then try and not then, oh my God, I shouldn't have said that, or like back out of it, or diminish it, or like go, oh, but it's okay if. So I think I write emails differently now. I definitely will still write them like really over-explanatory, lots of like exclamation marks and like, if it's okay, and can I just, and would it be this, and thank you so. I try and like, I have to actively go into them. You'd think to yourself, who's got the time to re-edit your emails? But I think it's a really powerful thing. It's your communication to go, right, you know what? I also want to avoid 10 emails back and forth, right? So thinking of your work smart, I will go back into my emails and just take a second and go, did I really need to say that? And I found breastfeeding quite helpful in this sense. I mean, I remember seeing things being like, or my mum saying to me, when you're breastfeeding, think nice thoughts because it will help the milk, and you know your baby's going to feed off you, which then stressed me out even more, because I was like, if I'm holding the baby and I'm stressed, am I,
giving her stress milk?
Am I giving her stress milk? Am I giving her like hectic milk? But what I would do is I would lie there and I would think to myself, what do I need to think today? What do I need to do today? What do I need to communicate today? And I would almost like half draft an email. So by the time I actually got to my phone or to my thing, I would just say it in as little words as possible, which as a rambler, you're probably thinking, how was she able to do that? But I tried really hard to say less, get things done more efficiently to avoid the back and forth, and be really honest, which I touched on before with my time. Like, yeah, I can come and do it, but, or, if there's a photo shoot, I'm so sorry, but I really want us to all get what we need out of this, but I'm going to have to say that I have to be in and out for 90 minutes. Got to get back to breastfeed the baby. Well, we're coming to the end of our breastfeeding, but at the same time, I will hopefully take that on for myself and just not have to explain, just be like, I really want to do it. It's going to work for me if we do this.
So you share your little beautiful baby Summer online. I would love to know if making motherhood public to your audience and to your network has affected your work in any way.
I think that it has been a really positive experience. I think people have really rooted for us through the last 3 or 4 years. So we've had some incredible, lovely feedback, and quite a few new babies called Summer. Actually, my baby's called Summer, and quite a few new Summer babies said inspired by us. So I love that. But yeah, no, all in all, it has been positive.
Is there a question that you would have for a working mum that is also maybe struggling to find balance?
I guess my main one is, am I doing good by my baby? I know, and by me.
So how do you know when you feel like you're doing enough for you and the family and the baby?
Yeah.
How do you know?
How do you know? And I know that people go, oh, it's the mum life, work-life balance. But
or it's so individual.
Yeah. But what is that? You know how we talk about these things, but what is that? What does that look like? How do you assess
it? Is there a guideline or a blueprint of questions that you run through?
Yeah.
Okay. And the question that I have for you is, do you have a sentence that describes how you juggle work and motherhood?
So I would say, can I say that the way I'm juggling motherhood and work is by giving myself emotional, physical, spiritual, big old hugs and mothering myurself through motherhood.
And we all need to do a bit of that, definitely.
Just a bit of this from we're primary school kids.
Yeah.
Just a bit of you're doing all right, girl.
And you really are. And we have to remember to give ourselves a pat on the back.
Yeah.
Because it's not, it's the most, it's just so big. It's the biggest life change. It's the biggest responsibility. Everything is so big, it feels.
Can I say one thing that I keep wanting to say to you is, I love this podcast, and I have listened to so many mum podcasts as part of my visualization and all of that, wanting to learn, and I thought I knew how big and intense it was going to be, and it doesn't even touch the sides. I cannot believe how all-encompassing it is, and how amazing it is. But like, what a shift.
Especially for the first, they say, a lot of people say the first baby is the biggest shift, and then other bababies sort of slot into your new blueprint that you have built after that.
That's it.
But
I still feel kind of in denial is not the right word. I almost feel still like, whoa.
You're catching up with the reality of
almost a year on.
Oh, I feel
same,
the same.
right?
Like I wake up and I actually asked my friend this the other day, when do you feel like you're a mother? And she's like, she only feels it now with her 6-year-old that has conversations with her and is, my friend said, I feel this level of real responsibility that goes beyond the physical survival or the physical work that she does to keep her babies alive. It's more like actually molding them and their little minds and attitudes towards the world. And that level of responsibility has led her to feel like she's a real mother now. And I want to know, to wrap up this podcast, all about your book.
The name is RealHealthy, and the strapline is called Unprocess Your Diet with Easy Everyday Recipes. What a mouthful. And the idea being that, a bit like we're talking about today, life has become so complicated. It moves at this rapid rate that even when we think it couldn't get any busier and more stressful, it then does again and again. And the idea being like, how convenient has convenience become? So convenient food, what might have been called junk food, convenient food, is now loosely being called like this huge range of foods as ultra processed foods. And evidence has come out that they are, like I was saying, linked to poor health outcomes. So without dwelling on that, and it's not a book about those foods, it is a book about how we used to eat. So like real food, traditional food, bringing things back to basics, bringing things back to whole, abundant, nourishment, nutrients, wholesomeness, but in a convenient way. So loads of like grab and go lunches, breakfast, things you can meal prep, especially for
How long are your recipes?
Oh, most of them are half an hour or under.
Perfect.
Yeah. And then I've got some batch cooking, because anyone who is maybe having another baby or has got a friend with a baby, I'm sure we all know that's the number one helpful thing.
Oh, that's the order and the gift I give all of my friends that have just had babies.
And not just at the beginning, because everyone remembers to do it at the beginning. Like maybe 3 months in.
3 months, yeah.
So loads of quick recipes, as you say, one pots, things you can make ahead. And also ideas of like, if you're going to go out on the high street and get this, what could you add to it? So like, what little things? So I'm going on a flight tomorrow and I've got like my little packets of things that I will add to. So I'm going to grab a yogurt I know at the airport, but I'm going to add my own seeds and nuts. And, you know, that took me 1 second to grab out, just because it's not about just me now. This is the other thing. I need to be healthy and vital. And we know travel takes it out of us. So I want to feel good when I come back.
And
from
where
holiday.
can we get this book?
Oh,
Where's the convenient way to get this book? No, joking. We don't want a convenient way. We want to support our local bookshops.
Local bookshops. And you know, there's an amazing website called bookshop.org, which is an online bookshop, but they support local bookshops. Oh. And there's loads like that. So all the bookshops.
Where can we find out more information about you?
My Instagram is @melissa.hemsley. Or melissahemsley.com. And there's also, I just want to shout out, you know what, if you don't know if you want to commit to a book, my publisher will be like, no, push the book. If you don't want to commit to a book necessarily, I've got loads of recipes online as well.
And they look tasty. Oh my God, every time I scroll through your feed, I'm like, I want that. I'm just going to come over to your house, Mel. I'm just going to get cooked. Whenever I'll hold summer and get all my cuddles.
Yeah.
Actually, I should be cooking for you, really. Let's be honest.
No, I'm cooking for you. I'm cooking for you.
Thank you
for having
so
me.
much for coming on. It's been such a pleasure.
Thank you.
Everyone go and check out Melissa Hemsley's new book.
Thanks everyone for listening.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
If you enjoyed that episode or found it interesting, inspiring, or it connected with you in any way, please share it with a friend that you think would love it too. Your support means the absolute world and helps us reach more people with these stories. For more information about our guest or anything else that you've listened to today, be sure to check out the show notes below. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye. Question.
Yes.
If you could take yourself back to Melissa a year ago, when she first gave birth to Summer, and think about that girl then, what advice would you give to her knowing where you're at now?
Oh, Jada, that's intense. I would say keep looking after yourself. Like when I was pregnant, I really looked after myself because I was carrying my baby. I was so tender with myself and so like said such lovely things. And I think when I gave birth, I instantly went, she comes first. But I feel like I give myself advice like, keep taking care of yourself, keep mothering yourself, keep saying that same thing, keep drinking water, keep peeing, go and have a pee, keep doing the things that give you joy and make you feel good, and baby's gonna feel good when you do. I think I would say that. I think babies they know exactly what they're doing. They've got the priorities straight, like eat, sleep, poop, and it's us that we've got to really look out for. So I would remind myself to look after myself.